I feel like I just committed a crime against humanity or something. I like my coffee hot, but recently I've determined that I like cold brewed coffee better because it's just a little less acidic, it's smoother. Oh, Draco. Come here. You want to say hi? Oh, here's the baby. Oh, you're gonna get your fur all over me. In this nice white shirt too. So yeah, cold brewed coffee. I think I like it better, but I like my coffee hot. It's kind of like a comfort morning warm drink for me. So I microwave my cold brew. Anyways, this guy wants to go outside and look at the garden, and I know that you do too. So let's go do that. But before we go outside, I want to show you what I'm growing inside. Can you see my little babies? These are my onion sprouts. I actually have no idea if the timing is right on these, but I have a ton of seeds, so I'm going to try a few different timings and kind of see what works out. But I've planted them kind of like just all over these pots, and the idea is to separate them out once they're big enough and then go plant them outside. Alrighty. Are you guys ready to go out? Draco, what? You just begged to go outside. Oh man, cats. They are very silly little creatures sometimes. So also, as far as fall stuff, I have all of these brassicas started. They are probably a month old by now. I will look up when I planted them and try and tell you. But this is mostly Brussels sprouts, broccoli, and a little bit of cauliflower. And they are getting hardened off right now because they're going to be planted in the next couple of weeks, maybe sooner, because they are totally outgrowing these little containers. What I'm really realizing is that starting a fall garden happens at the peak of summer harvest season, which is really inconvenient because you are not thinking about fall gardening in the middle of your summer harvest season. However, things like especially the Brussels sprouts and the broccoli take a while to get up to size. And really what you're wanting is for that to be just about to produce right as the frost is coming in, which is actually a whole lot of non-frost season growing for those plants. And I used to plant later, like September, even October, because my first frost is right at the beginning of November. And that just was not enough time. The days get shorter and shorter and shorter leading up to that frost date, and things just didn't have enough time to grow. Plus, when it's cooler, things are also going to start growing just a little bit slower as well. If I wake up soon enough, I'll come sit in my chair and look at the garden before it gets too hot. But it is 11 o'clock-ish in the morning, and it is already 86 degrees out here, and the humidity is very high, probably 80% or higher. Whew. It's a lot to be out here in the mornings these days. And you might be like, Rachel, why don't you just wake up earlier to do the garden tour? And to that I say, that's not how my sleep cycle works. If you want an awake and coherent narrator, this is the timing that we got to do it. So let's start looking at the garden. I've got this basil here that I just cut yesterday, finally, for pesto. And I've said this before, but to anybody who hasn't seen, the way you cut basil is you always cut off the tops of the plant. And you'll find the little slits like this and cut right above them. And that is how you get a bushy plant as opposed to something kind of spindly. Because I think people's first inclination is to look down at the bottom and find like maybe the bigger leaves and pull those off first. But you need to just leave the bottom of the plant alone and always be pulling from the top, and you will get a much bushier plant. Now the tomatoes, these are still setting fruit, goodness. but they're not looking nearly as healthy as they were. You can see lots of dead leaves. I haven't really been coming through and pruning basically at all because you know, this is the time of year where I have to use my time outside wisely. Otherwise I will get tired and hot and sweaty and sunburned and all those things. Oh, let's see. Beans. I have been having to keep up with these. Oh, look at all those babies. Definitely pulling a lot of beans these days, even from the 2 plants. It is enough for fresh eating for me, but not quite enough to can, so I've been kind of giving it away as it comes in, and that seems to work really well. I do like sharing with my friends, and canning green beans or even freezing them, you know, it's okay. It'll store them, but eating those again is just not ideal green bean consumption. You can see how some of these bigger tomatoes have gone all the way to the top of the trellis, flopped over because there was nothing left for me to pin them to, and are now growing back down the trellis. And I definitely could, if I had the energy, come through and cut all of these leaves that look diseased, and the whole plant would probably do a bit better. But it is getting close to the end of the season for tomatoes anyway, and pretty soon I will tear all of this out, even if they are still producing, because the amount that they're going to produce is going to reduce quite a bit. And you know, the space in a garden this size can be utilized a bit more efficiently than that. Here's the lone remaining sunflower after all of the storms that we've had recently, and even this one is missing a lot of branches because the winds and everything just were too much and snapped a bunch of them over. So I cut them all out, and we just have this one left, and it is still making a couple of beautiful fresh flowers. But yeah, it's starting to be time to look at where am I going to put those brassicas that are up on the porch, and I'm thinking tomatoes are going to be the first thing to go. So I might try planting brassicas underneath that big tall trellis, because I don't really have very much in the fall and the winter that actually need a trellis. So I can just treat that like a normal row and just kind of plant off to the side of that trellis and have it be like a row of broccoli or something. If we take a look at this second row here, this section that I really like looking at is still absolutely gorgeous. You wouldn't even know that I keep pulling all the most beautiful flowers out of here for bouquets, because they just keep making more. Like, holy cow, this is one of my favorite colors. It's also very culturally relevant, Barbie colored flower. Yeah, these zinnias have been really great. I did save some seeds from last year for the zinnias, and then I also got a couple of new varieties. I assume that because I'm not doing anything specific, when I eventually save seeds from these, they will be crossed in some way, and that's fine with me. I'm here for a surprise of colors every year. I think that that's kind of lovely. I think tomatillos might also come out somewhat soon. They're definitely still making fruit, but you can see the plants are looking a little worse for the wear. They've been eaten by flea beetles, and production has definitely slowed down a bit. Plus, the pests that eat the fruit are ramping up. I'm also getting a lot of fruits dropped at this small stage, and I'm not entirely sure what is causing that. But when the husk turns yellow, it should be a full fruit filling the husk, and this is definitely not a good sign. But I don't know a whole lot about tomatillos, to be honest. This is the first year that I've actually gotten like a substantial harvest from tomatillos, so I'm definitely still learning in that area. For those of you who are new here, these tours are very much almost a stream of consciousness for me as I go through the garden with you and kind of talk about what comes to mind and what I've been thinking about as far as garden related things. So the things that come out of my mouth might not always be correct, but I am out here constantly trying to learn and help you guys avoid a lot of the trial and error that you might go through, especially as a beginner gardener, by doing the errors for you. I mean, I do mess up quite a bit, but I do have all of this food here still. And I say some version of this almost every week these days. I want you as a new gardener to be encouraged that you can mess up a lot of things and still have a lot of good plants, a lot of good produce and harvest. And, you know, it's okay. Everybody's going to mess up. Everybody's going to kill some plants. Everybody's going to make the wrong decision. But the difference is between a gardener who is successful and one who's not is really just whether or not you're willing to learn from those mistakes and try again. My eggplants are definitely not quite taking off this year the way that they did last year. I don't know if it's just because of the variety or maybe some version of weather or when they were planted. Like these ones are actually looking like a better size than the other ones, but these are the two that haven't really started fruiting yet. You can see they're trying. These are flowers, but I haven't actually gotten any fruits off of these two. Meanwhile, these ones back here are the ones that were crowded out by radishes for a while, so I was expecting them to be smaller. They are making beautiful fruits now, and they are still smaller. This one I think is the same variety as those and hasn't fruited, and this one is just still a little too small to fruit. But we've got this one fruiting, and I think if I cleared out the radishes a little sooner, these might be doing a little bit better. But you know, I am still getting fruit, at least off of this one. And my Chinese string eggplants have been quite productive. I mean, look at that. There's one there, there's one there, there's another one back there, and another one there. I could probably pull almost all of these off the plant at this point. And my two sweet peppers here at the front of the row have some very close to ripe peppers on them. That one is almost ready. This one is almost ready. I had thought that this bell was an Etuda, which would go orange, but it's actually going red, so it's probably California Wonder. I'll have to go back and remember what I planted. This one is definitely Ivarski with the little pointed tail there. My seed saving operation with those is still not going the best. My little baggies covering my flowers keep falling off, and I don't know if it's because the flowers aren't getting pollinated because I'm too busy and I never come out here, or if they're like a little too heavy and just kind of tugging the flowers off. I have gotten a couple to pollinate, and I've marked those, but I've been having to reset a lot of bags, and I am prone to believe that it's more of a pollination issue than a weight issue because they are really, really light little baggies. So, you know, I should probably just come out here more and make sure that all those little flowers get pollinated. I was kind of assuming that the wind would do it because pepper flowers are self-pollinating. So all you have to do is kind of jostle them and they pollinate themselves. But it seems that might not be the case. I mean, it's a little breezy today, but honestly the air has been kind of still the last few days. Further down here we have the corn, which, if you remember last week, was like mid rib cage on me. Now the tallest leaves, like this one over here, that's taller than my head, and I'm 5'4". So this is little more than 5 foot tall corn, 5.5 feet, and still I'm not seeing any evidence of cobs on it, although it would be kind of early. I think maybe next week or the week after we might start seeing cobs forming on these, and that is exciting because this is popcorn, and I've told you all before, popcorn is my favorite way to consume corn. And it also feels like a really efficient use of corn growing space when I only have a little bit of space to devote to corn. Fresh eating corn would not go as far, for me at least, as popcorn, because I tend to eat popcorn in smaller quantities than I would like fresh corn. Look at that. I just saw that. I have no idea what it is, but it is purple and yellow and fast. Kind of gorgeous. But I was just looking at the fact that this right here has been munched on a fair bit. I've seen this kind of damage to corn before. I don't really know what does this, but if anybody recognizes it, let me know. Underneath the corn there is one of those onions that I left. You can see it has very clearly split into 3 bulbs now. You know, just a really good visual illustration of what I've said before. Just is that onions are like a bulb where if you leave it in the ground, it will split the same way like your tulips or your irises would. And it's the same with garlic. That's why you can plant 1 clove of garlic and get back a full head, because it's just splitting. All right, so we are back up here at the front of row 3. And I have some of these blueberry bushes here that I haven't talked about in a while because I thought they were dead. But I just noticed that they're putting on new leaves, and they look disease-free, which really makes me think that this wasn't disease at all, and it was just my bad attention. I probably just didn't water them enough, because they're in these little tiny pots that dry out so fast. Like, look, this is making new tiny leaves here. I bet if I just cut off all of the really dead looking stuff, this will end up looking like a really nice plant. But the caveat here is that I have to actually water it. And the reason that is hard for me is because it rains so much here that for the vast majority of stuff I grow, even the stuff in some of my other containers and the raised beds and everything, I don't water it, barely ever. I have this drip irrigation system. Last year I watered kind of, you know, a fair bit, maybe like once a week or so, but I have only had to run this drip irrigation system once. And the rest of the time, the rain is enough. And those of you who live in my area who are getting about the same amount of rain as me and are saying that that wouldn't work for you, I do have kind of a small theory on that. I think if you water your garden from the beginning too often, then the roots will be really shallow because they won't have to go very deep to find that water. And so you're basically creating a plant that is dependent on you to be watered more often instead of reaching deeper into the soil and kind of providing better for itself. But you know, that's just a theory in my head. I haven't done any real research on that, so take that as you will. These days the noodle bean trellis is looking mostly the way that I wanted. It's not as dense as it was in years past, and that is intentional because I do have this cucumber plant on here. I'd hope to have more than one, but with the cucumber plant filling in kind of down here near the bottom, it's about the right amount of leaves. And honestly, even with the fewer noodle beans, I still have plenty to harvest. Like, this is about the size that I would harvest a noodle bean, and it'll go from this size to this size by tomorrow. You can see all these beans coming in. And then up there we see some ants plotting. Let's see if I can get it to focus. Oh, I can't. But anyways, the ants really tend to gather right at the tips of the stems of these noodle beans. And I don't exactly know why these red ants really want to be right here. They don't seem to damage the fruit at all. I don't really know what they're doing. But right here where the noodle beans grow out, they are always here every year. And then if we come past this trellis to the second one, it looks a little more barren at first glance, but you can see down here at the bottom, these blue butterfly peas are really starting to fill in. I've been pulling the flowers and drying them. They are all so gorgeous. These beautiful multi-layered things. Look at that. Those are wondrous. Even if this was just an ornamental and not edible, I might still grow it. It did take quite a while, y'all saw, to get started. These plants were like tiny for the longest time, and now they're suddenly shooting up. And then past the trellis is the hot pepper section. You can see it still looks a little blown over. And right here at the front is my fish pepper, which is finally looking like a fish pepper with its variegation, and making little teeny peppers finally. So that is very exciting. I've got not very many ripe peppers off of these yet, but you can see right here, oh, this first one is turning here. That one's starting to be orange. It's gonna be such a bright orange that next to this purple, like I keep saying, I will eventually show you guys how much of a Clemson pepper this is. This is Buena Mulata, by the way. And then we've got this one here, which I'm pretty sure is, I'll have to put the name on the screen for you because I know I can't pronounce it. But it is in a different species than most of the other ones. A lot of stuff is Capsicum annum, and I do try and grow some Capsicum fructens and Capsicum baccatum, and I just think it's really interesting to kind of see the differences in these peppers. Also, an interesting thing to check up on, this plant that looks like it's had disease actually doesn't look like its disease is spreading. After I watered it down with the organic Rev, it's looking about the same, and I don't really see it spreading to the other peppers around it, which is just a really good sign that the Rev is actually working to help with the disease. Is organic Rev specifically going to be fighting these diseases for the plants? I'm not really sure. There's definitely good bacteria, good fungi in it, but I think more than anything, it is about good nutrition. For humans as well as plants, having really good, varied nutrition can strengthen your immune system and help you to just fight off whatever's coming at you better on your own. I am affiliated with Organic Rev, but I am only affiliated with them because I think their product is so good, especially for people who want to garden like me without synthetic fertilizers and pesticides. Gardening the way that I do is all about building soil health and an ecosystem that kind of works together, and I think Organic Rev really fits into that vision very well. Because I am affiliated, I do always have a link in my description where you can get 10% off, and that also helps support me and my channel. I get a little bit of an affiliate income from that. It's not a lot, but I do really recommend this product to people who are trying to kind of ditch the pesticides and the fertilizers and all of that. Because as you may have heard me say before, I feel like pesticides and synthetic fertilizers are only band-aids on a larger problem, and if you can just create an ecosystem where everything is working together instead of trying to selectively add in things or subtract things like pests, then you're going to end up with healthier plants. And oh, look at that, that's my first Peppadew pepper, so exciting. Yeah, I just think that if you go down the route of pesticides and fertilizers, you're always going to be playing catch up, because, you know, if there's a pest in the system, right, and you take it out, then there's going to be an emptiness in the ecosystem, and something is going to come in to fill that, and it may or may not be good. And with fertilizers, right, that is really just speaking to a lack of nutrition in your soil that you can fix by adding a lot more compost, adding a lot more biodiversity to the bacteria and fungi in your soil that will help kind of build that literally from the ground up, and just create a better environment for your plants where they can actually defend themselves better because they've got better nutrients coming in, and you won't need as many pesticides because the pests won't be able to attack nearly as viciously as they would if the plant was under nutritioned. There's a word for that, but it's escaping my brain. Yeah, if they were like underfed. So anyways, soapbox stepping off. Over in this back corner here, I did plant some more potatoes. I haven't really seen anything come up yet, but it might be a little early for that, especially because none of them were sprouted just yet. We do have the sweet potatoes back here though that are doing a good job kind of filling in this back area where it's a lot harder for me to get to. And I heard recently, like just the other day, that sweet potato leaves are edible and good in stir fries. So I'm definitely going to have to try that out. Nourished. The word my brain was looking for was nourished. So in this last row here, I have a lot more sweet peppers that are putting on fruits, but none of them have started ripening yet. Oh, what are you? You look kind of like a squash bug, but I'm not 100% sure since you are not on a squash. And, oh look, this one's got an open flower in it. Let's tap that while we're here. I am going to keep trying to save seeds from these because I really would like to not have to buy seeds for these and like kind of create a line that is really well adapted to living in my specific garden. Aside from the obvious benefit of saving money on seeds, if you've never heard me say this before, by saving your own seeds, you are effectively selecting for plants that are doing really, really well in your specific environment, your way of gardening, your garden, your soil, and over time you will just get better and better plants that are more adapted to that. Strawberry babies are looking better and better every week. Almost all of these are putting on fresh growth, and once they look healthy enough, I will set them out for people to take and give a few away to my friends. It might be hard to believe, but this corn right in here was actually planted at the same time as that other corn that is now taller than me. It is a different variety. It is in the shade. It could be one of those things. It could be both of those things that are keeping it small. This is strawberry popcorn as opposed to the other one, which is like a regular popcorn type. I don't know, but it is continuing to grow, so we'll see if we actually get anything off of this before the frost. I do still have this absolutely gorgeous kale that I can't really do anything with right now because the leaves are too bitter. But just look at that. It's so healthy. It's having such a good time over here. Similarly, this one, if it wasn't all flopped over, it looks great. I mean, look at these leaves. It's so happy. It's not even trying to go to seed. And maybe if it's still here when the frost comes, I will finally get some sweet leaves off of it. Alright, so we are now moving on to the raised beds. I've got my little fig here, still doing amazingly well. For, you know, the fact that it was just a stick at the beginning of the season. Oh, yeah, you can see the old stick a little dead. But fig looks healthy. The lavender, at least the half of it that hasn't died, looks healthy. Curry plant, sage, parsley, oregano, thyme, and tarragon all look great. I actually finally started pulling herbs the other day for drying so that I can actually have dry spices over the winter. And in the second raised bed, I did finally take that kale out so that the chives can have a little bit more sunlight. I mostly this year I'm just letting them get established. This is their first year. I haven't really pulled from them at all. They were growing kind of slow because of all the shade from that giant kale that was here. Chamomile still making, I know baby, chamomile still making more and more flowers, and this nasturtium will not die. It's not really alive, but it's not really dead either. I really should plant something else in the top here because this just looks kind of barren and sad. And you can also see how much everything has compacted since I filled the bed. So this could use a whole layer of compost and some more seeds for something for the fall. Greek oregano, still looking great. My lemon thyme, smelling amazing. And of course, parsley everywhere, looking lovely. Guess who hasn't had time to weed the blueberries yet? That's me. There are blueberry bushes in here, I swear, and I really need to weed them out and do another layer of mulch in this whole area. But this area where the strawberries are, you'll notice, is not overgrown in the same way that this area that didn't have strawberries yet is, which means that this as ground cover is working to help at least beat back the majority of the grass. You can see some of it still coming up in between there. But like overall, this strawberry ground cover is working great, and like I like it so far. We'll see if I continue to like it as time goes on. Blackberries still putting on fresh new flowers, and raspberries are just like still peak production. I cannot come out here often enough, it seems, to pull all the berries that are coming off of these plants. And that is enough direct sunshine for me. It's probably more than 90 degrees out here now. It is hot here in South Carolina. This is the time of year that we call doorstep of hell, just because of how hot it is. And it'll stay hot all the way through August. I mean, I will still be able to go swimming in the lake in October here. It is wild. Anyways, thank you guys so much for joining me on this tour. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. I hope you giggled a little bit. And if you are new and you want to catch up on some of the garden tours, I'll leave a playlist here for you to check out. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, happy gardening.